If you have studied American English for some time, you may have realized that maybe some sounds are easier for you, but some sounds are more challenging. In fact, what tends to be among the most challenging sound for people who are learning American English? Today, we're going to discuss that to help you achieve a much more natural sound the next time that you speak. Morning, good evening, good afternoon, guys. Welcome to the Schwa Mill. This is your American English pronunciation review show. You send us the audio files, I take a look at them, and give you feedback to help you achieve a more natural sound. When I say I, it is me. Hi, my name is Geoff. It rhymes with breath. That is one of the 4 keys to a natural sound in American English, including placement, pitch, breath, trying to weaken your consonant sounds and strengthen your vowel sounds. I was sent a couple of files that had a very similar connection between them, a very similar thread. And I want you to see if you can identify what that specific sound may be. Let's take a quick glance at both of the audio files we're going to be taking a look at today.
Can, fan, man, hand, understand, jam.
And our second one.
The problem with that is that you're trying to do things in a way that you can't afford to do because you're not in that problem.
Okay, and both of these sound files, though the voices are drastically different from each other, are encountering a very similar issue, and that is with the an sound. This is the a sound, like in cat or sad, that is then linked with a nasal sound. A nasal sound means, for instance, like the letter N or the letter M. How can we help this to sound more natural? Well, let's begin just by talking about what the a sound needs to do on its own. The a sound, again, like in cat or sad, in general is made with the tongue almost making like an upside down U shape. The back of your tongue is down, the front of your tongue can be down. Something that can be helpful for students too is tensing the corners of your lips. So, like, ah, ah, ah. Your mouth does not even have to go that wide. Some people, when they're pronouncing it, may go even wider, though. They may do like ah, ah, ah. One of the things that can be helpful with that is if you look at yourself in the mirror when you say an ah sound, it's like ah. See how big my tongue is? It takes up a lot of space in my mouth. Ah. Compare that to, for instance, like an ah sound, like in stop, like ah. See how you can now see farther back into my mouth? Ah versus ah. My tongue takes up a bit more space. You can check that in the mirror yourself to compare just what your tongue is doing. The problem with the ah sound when it links with a nasal is that there is a movement. So as you get closer to the N, instead of an ah, again like in cat, ah, cat, you may feel your tongue sliding backwards to get a sound that's a little bit more like eh. Can you hear that difference between ah and eh, ah, eh, ah, eh, ah, eh? Can you hear the difference between those? As you get that transition and work on it, you also want to try to keep your placement down and low, because the problem that some people are having is that when they're making this second sound for the ah, the placement goes really high and we get kind of nasal, like It's a very nasally sound. Like, imagine I said every sentence like this. It kind of has that effect because your placement goes very high. So we want to watch out for that as we transition to this ah plus the nasal. So that's the first step. The tongue might slide back a little bit. Then we need to get to that letter N. And to do that, what we're going to do is do a heavy breath out of your nose right before the N. So it's going to sound like and, 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 and. Do that heavy breath out of your nose right before that N. You can just try to do it faster. And. Okay. It's like ah, and, ah, and, ah, and. It may be helpful to bounce between those two. What's up, to? Gotcha, I'm hanging out with us. Okay. So, having gone through that, let's maybe take a look at a couple of example words before we return to our files. Here are just a few. Totally did a misspelling. Give me one sec. Sometimes your keyboard doesn't keyboard. Okay. Let's try this. So we're going to do that same progression. We're going to do an ah sound that's normal. Then we're going to add the N sound, the heavy breath out of your nose and the tongue slightly shifting back. And then we're going to do the full word. See if you can do this progression with me. So ah and plan, ah and plan, ah and man, ah and man, ah and than, ah and than. And then if we say each of these words in 2 cycles, like plan, man, plan, man, than. Notice that when I'm doing it, my placement is staying down. You can hear the breath and the resonance continuing throughout all this. What in general we don't want is for the sound to go ultra nasally, like plan, man, than versus plan, man, than. The difference is the placement. This discussion can't be complete with just talking about the letter N. When you make the letter N sound, most likely if you're watching this, your first language also has an N sound, but the N sound in your first language might not sound like it does in American English. In American English, that sound that the N makes is like a mm, mm, mm. It does not sound like mm, mm, mm. Do you hear a difference between and mm? The problem is if you use that higher one, that it can cause your placement to go high on everything else. So plan becomes plan, or man, or sand, or than, or can, and things like that. Your placement just keeps shooting high because your placement's high on your letter N. All right, we're going to listen again to our files, but before we do that, I do want to just give a quick shout out to our sponsor for today, which is us. It's our Telegram group program. So you may know by this time that we do our Schwa Mill episodes on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. But the downside is they're fast. They're only about 10 to 15 minutes long. And we're looking at 2 files at a time. We may not get to your file. Or you may be wondering, what are some specific feedback things that I need for my own pronunciation? That's where our full Telegram group comes in. If you go to fluentamerican.com/Telegram, we have a Telegram group where I give all the members feedback every single day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You're going to get feedback for yourself within 24 hours. This is extremely helpful if, for instance, throughout your day, you have a question and you want to get some help from a native speaker, or you're just not sure how to say a word, or maybe there's a phrase that you need to prepare for a meeting or a presentation you're about to give, or maybe you're making a video or you have an audio project and you might get some help on that pronunciation. Or maybe you just don't know what sounds you need to study. So you just want to talk and identify what issues you may have. We can do all those things. You can send multiple files. You can retry your audio as often as you need in the group. So if that sounds like something you're interested in sounding more natural in American English and in knowing where are your weaknesses for your sounds, I think this program is going to help you out, just like it's helped out all of our members. You can visit fluentamerican.com/Telegram for more information about that. Having said all that, let's now take a look at our specific files for today.
Can, fan, man, hand, understand, jam.
Okay, so one of the things that's happening here is this is something that we discussed earlier where you can hear the placement really shooting high. And. I would say, hey, can we try to get these sounds moving a little bit lower placement wise? One thing you can try doing is, for instance, our staircase, like and. Once you get more comfortable with that, you can also start adding those initial consonants like and, man, and, man, and, man, and, man, and, man, kind of practicing like that. Another thing you try doing is just like dragging if you find the steps difficult. It's like and. Notice as we get towards the end, we also add more breath, more resonance. That's going to help low placement as well. And man, things like that. You can hear it kind of dropping down. The other thing that I want us to kind of watch out for here.
Can, fan, man, hand, understand, jam.
it wouldn't surprise me. And again, I'm not seeing you on video, so I'm not sure if this is true or not. But it sounds like we have some pretty heavy mouth moves, like man, can, hand. I wouldn't be surprised if we're doing a lot of action through here. So I would say, hey, can we minimize the mouth movement? Can you try to say all of these with a very relaxed mouth that doesn't move a lot? It's like man, can, hand, plan, land. See, not a lot of mouth movement. We might be over tensing, which can also cause some issues too. So I'd experiment with a couple of those things there. Thank you for sending that audio. I hope all the tips we talked about so far help you. Let's look at our second file.
The problem with that is that you're trying to do things in a way that you can't afford to do because you're
Slightly different word. Did you hear the word that has the and sound? In this case, it's that word can't. Can't. Instead, we very much reduced it, which isn't necessarily a problem because can't is often reduced. But the bigger thing is that our placement went super, super high and nasally.
the problem with that is that you're trying to do things in a way that you can't afford to do.
Can't afford, you can't afford versus like you can't afford, you can't afford. Can't is a funny word because when it's reduced, there's lots of different ways it can sound like. The one that you're going for, it sounds like it's the heavy reduction. It's like can't, like you can't afford, you can't afford. So even in this case, while it doesn't necessarily have the full nasal situation we're talking about here, the placement is still very, very high. We're going to try to lower it. You can't afford, but you can't afford.
The problem with that is that you're trying to do things in a way that you can't afford to do because you're not in.
One of the reasons why this may be happening is you can hear through your sentence, our placement shoots up on a word and it just never goes back down. And this is the hard thing with placement when we talk, is if your placement suddenly goes high while you're speaking, it is very challenging to get it back down. Just going to be honest with you. It's going to be very hard to lower it. We're going to get stuck at that high placement. And it might be for a couple of words. And that's really what I'm hearing here. Let's try to identify a moment where the placement goes high.
The problem with that is that you're trying to do things in a way.
It seems to be right around like you're trying to do, maybe the word do, the ooh sound. Okay. This like you're trying to do, you're trying to do.
The problem with that is that you're trying to do things in a way that you can't afford to
do things in a way you can't afford versus do things in a way that you can't afford. Do you see how I kept the placement down? I said do things in a way you can't afford versus do things in a way that you can't afford. Do you hear the difference between when I say that section with a high placement versus when I say it with a lower placement? So trying to be more consistent with where we're projecting from. Okay. Oh wow, c'è Mattia. Ciao ciao ciao. Come stai? Hope you're doing well, Mattia. So we want to watch out for that placement because that placement level just like completely shot up, and we want to try to keep it down a bit. Okay. So watch out for instance, again, like the word do. It's like ooh, do. So it's not ooh, do. It's do. Watch out for diphthongs like the A sound in way. So it's not way, it's way. And then, of course, like we've been talking about, trying to keep placement down and like can't. And I think that'll help you achieve a much more natural sound. All right. If you would like to have audios possibly selected for our next stream, which will be on Friday, right around 7:30 a.m. New York, you can join our free Telegram group, which you can find in the video description. But if you would like to get feedback for yourself in the meantime, you can go to fluentamerican.com/Telegram. It would be great to work with you there. Thanks to everyone who's been sending audio files, and hopefully we'll get to work with them soon. Once more, my name is Geoff. It rhymes with breath. That's one of the 4 keys to a natural sound in American English, including placement, pitch, breath, trying to weaken your consonant sounds, strengthen your vowel sounds. Thanks for hanging out with me. There's a lot of resources out there. I'm very much aware. So the fact that you are here is appreciated. I hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon.